So welcome everyone to the Antelope Valley Soaring Porch Chat. This is our bi-weekly meeting here on Zoom. And tonight we are really pleased and welcome to have an exciting talk by Doug Fronius. Doug is a very long time pilot. And Doug is going to talk tonight about the restoration of the JRV sailplane. This is an incredible sailplane that is amazing to see that this is still up and flying thanks to Doug's skills in sailplane restoration. So Doug, a longtime San Diego gentleman, has now retired from Northrop Grumman, where his final assignment was as chief engineer, overall company aircraft programs. And Doug started flying hang gliders in 1971. That was a good year. That was my first year being a junior in high school. He is a licensed pilot since 1978. And he has 3 diamonds and a single Lenny. And almost all of his have been flown in the LK-10. He holds an FAA Power Glider, UAV, and A&P ratings. He's based out of Tehachapi's Mountain Valley Airport. And I've been honored to hang out in this hangar and see all the amazing gliders and sailplanes in that hangar. Most of them, and many of them, very historic planes. And Doug has actually flown more than 40 different types of vintage gliders. So if there's anybody who knows and can talk to us about these types of classic sailplanes, Doug's definitely one of the top guys in our neighborhood to give this kind of talk. So at that point, go ahead and Doug, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Christopher. Just as a preamble, I'll bet with the folks on the line that just about everybody knows who John Robinson was, but just in case, John Robinson was one of the world's most famous soaring pilots. He was the first person in the world to achieve 3 diamonds, all 3 diamonds. He won the US Nationals 3 times. He held the world's altitude record several times. He was a pilot in the Sierra Wave project. He was head of chief instructor for World War II glider training in the Army Air Corps. And for the years 1940 through around 1950, somewhere in the early 50s, he was unbeatable in competition. This sailplane is the sailplane he used to learn to fly, to learn to compete. So we'll just get going here. I think I have control, right?
Yep.
Except it won't advance. There we go. Okay, a quick dedication. I'm dedicating this whole story to my dad in the left picture, with a younger version of me, who gave me his love of flight, and to my wife, May, on the right, who supports my love of flight and puts up with it. I'm going to talk fast. So as Christopher said, chat questions, and we'll answer as many as we can if we have them at the end. So in the beginning, John Robinson was born in San Diego in 1914. He attended San Diego High School, where the standard project was to build gliders, full-scale gliders in the woodshop. Robinson learned to fly a Torrey Pines in 2-seat primary that the high school kids built, and he built his first glider in 1935. It may have been the one in the upper right. We're not sure if that's number 1 or number 2. In 1937, he built a new glider that was completely out of welded steel tubes with wood ribs. He designated serial number JR4, and it was the first one that's registered as 18140. He was a welder by trade right out of high school, so he never saw anything that couldn't be built with welded steel. All Robinson built gliders were named Robin, just different versions of the Robin. Okay, the serial number JR5, which is the glider I have, was born. He completed his Silver C, 18th in the US, and set an unofficial US altitude record in the JR4. He started building a new set of wings for the JR4, but then he bought a set of Bruno baby wings that had been built in 1935 for a glider that was never finished. So Bruno baby was one of the most produced sailplanes in history. It was the standard single seat soaring glider in Europe in the mid 30s. He retrofitted those wings to the JR4 fuselage and that became the JR5. He licensed it as a new glider with registration NX18984, issued in July 1138. So the aircraft I have is that JR4 fuselage with the Gruno baby wings on. And you can see the upper picture was in Soaring magazine. It looks just like mine, except with an earlier rudder. And there's Johnny with the JR5. We think in a field in El Cajon, landing from across country from Brigo Desert, but we haven't verified that for sure. 1939 was a big year for this glider. He won first place at the first Torrey Pines Championships. He came in second at the Arvin competition, came second at the Wichita Falls, Texas contest, where he also completed his gold distance with a 200-mile flight. He headed to Elmira. Basically, he was flying competition all summer with a leave of absence from his welding job. He competed against 78 other pilots at the 39 Nationals. He came in 5th. And he also completed his gold altitude, which completed his gold badge, his second one in the USA. The upper right is the glider on the flight line at Arvin, right down the hill from Tehachapi toward Bakersfield. And lower right is at Elmira, and the wing behind and just above the Robin's wing is a Minimoa. And we know which one it is, but I forget the N number right now. The JR5 Robin, various features of instruments, ballast, etc. One of Johnny's features is he understood speed to fly, and he understood the Göttingen airfoil on the Gruno baby wings does not go fast unless you make the glider heavy, and he routinely carried up to 150 pounds of ballast to increase his cruising speed. It's basically the same wing as a baby Bolus, which he was competing against, but he had a 5 pound per square foot wing loading. The baby had 3. So you know, all the glider pilots know that means he can fly faster. He flew IFR in clouds as standard operating procedure using his Venturi-driven turn and bank. He taught himself to fly IFR, and he developed and sold his own very sensitive pellet variometer. The picture at right, courtesy of Andy Keskus, who's on the call. Thanks, Andy. His dad took this picture. It's the Robin panel in 1939. And I called out the instruments. And this was a goldmine picture because now I could recreate the original panel. And you can read through what it had in there. The one thing I'd like to note is the Venturi, the Pioneer turn and bank in the middle toward the nose. And on the right-hand side, the Venturi. In that picture, the Venturi is retracted inside the fuselage, but when you want to use it, it extends out into the airstream. And all the other instruments were things he salvaged. The airspeed is a World War I. The altimeter was a pocket balloonist barometer altimeter, probably made in the late 1800s. Okay, on to the Zanonia. Many of you know that Johnny became very famous flying the Zanonia, and he won 3 nationals with it, got all his diamonds, etc. Zanonia came to Johnny by a roundabout route. Woody Brown, who was a good friend of Johnny's, they flew together in San Diego. Woody had a baby Bolus called the Thunderbird, and he traded his Thunderbird for the damaged Zanonia at the Texas contest in June 39. The Zanonia had been damaged in out landing. The owner, Harvey Stevens was the owner pilot, got scared. He thought it was too fast a glider and dangerous, and he didn't want to repair it. So he traded to Woody for Woody's baby, and he took the baby and went on to Elmira to the Nationals, and Woody turned around and went home to San Diego to repair the Zanonia, which is probably the highest performance US designed glider yet at that point in time. After repairs, Woody started flying the Zanonia, but he dropped out of gliding later in 39 and moved to Hawaii, where he became a world famous big wave surfer. Robinson bought the Zanonia from Woody and started flying it in November 39, which really created the most formidable glider pilot combination of the 1940s. Johnny kept the Robin for quite a while in the logbooks. He mostly flew it locally at Torrey Pines and other local places around San Diego, and then flew the Zanonia in competition. But in 1941, he sold the Robin to Harry Comer and Walter Ballard, and they took it to the Arvin competition. The lower right picture is the Robin now painted all white. The earlier pictures, it wasn't. It had been recovered. And that picture was taken by my dad. That'll come back to us later in 1941. Okay, Bob Fronius is my dad and the Robinson JR5. He bought the Robin in June 46 from Comer and Ballard. They had flown it at Arvin before the war. It probably was in storage all during the World War II. There was almost no flying. When he got it, it looked like the upper right picture of it on the trailer. It had a covered trailer, canvas covered trailer, and the glider itself was uncovered at that time. I just got a notice that it said I am muted. Was that true?
Not true, Doug. Keep talking.
Okay, good. My dad bought the glider in 46. He recovered it, painted it orange and red, added lights and many instruments, all of which were easy to buy after World War II because of all the surplus. And he made his first flight in it 15 May 1948. His home base was Gillespie Field in El Cajon, where I'm based today for power flying. He did complete his Silver Sea duration on 2nd of January 49 at Torrey Pines. That would have been 10 years and 1 day after Johnny won the Torrey Pines championships there with the same glider. And he did a lot of Torrey Pines night flights. They were trying to set endurance records. That's why he put lights on it, so they could fly all night long at Torrey Pines. And they did a lot of night flying in the logbook, but they never broke any records. So that's on the runway. The lower right is on the runway at Gillespie Field in 1948. It's got thousands of landings on that runway. Okay. The first one of the features of my dad is he never saw an aircraft that didn't need to be modified. He was more interested in modifying it and experimenting than in just going out and going flying. In fact, rarely did he ever just go out and go flying. The first thing he did after he got the glider flying is he put a parachute on. He was a professional parachutist, so he added a large parachute to the Robin. And he demonstrated it at the Torrey Pines Championships in front of 5,000 or 10,000 people in 1949. And that picture in the center is from the San Diego Tribune newspaper of the glider under the chute. Now in the demonstration, he aero-towed up, got over the field at about 3,000 feet, deployed the chute, came down to about 1,000 feet where he released the chute, recovered from the dive and came in and landed. Because if he had gone all the way to the ground, it would have damaged the glider, just like the parachutes on full-scale aircraft today do. It was fully integrated into the turtleback above the wing, and this was the first permanent whole plane installation in the world. If you buy a Cirrus aircraft today, it comes with a chute. The lower right picture is the original turtleback. The forward is to the left. You can see the little bit of plastic part of the canopy. Then there's a fabric covered section that's red. It's all made out of little tiny welded steel tubes. And then he built an aluminum parachute compartment. These are the doors that are opened up. And the parachute just went in there. This whole turtleback sits above the wing. I then, by the way, getting ahead of ourselves on the restoration, I removed all the aluminum, replaced all the tubing back in that my dad had cut out, and restored the turtleback to its original configuration. So that part there is still flying today, at least parts of that part. So that was the parachute adventures. The next thing he did is the glider was always tail heavy. It still is today, the glider. Johnny liked to build things out of steel, as I mentioned earlier. The fuselage is lots of steel tubes. The tail spars are all very heavy steel tubes, and the fin and the rudder. And it was a pretty tail heavy glider. So he decided he'd get rid of the rudder and crank the elevators up into a V and create, and there are full flying tails already. So it became only two surfaces on the tail. And as far as we can tell, no one else had ever flown a full flying V-tail aircraft before. They had flown V-tail aircrafts with fixed stabilizers and moving rudder vaders, but not full flying. course, that was used later on by many aircraft like the SH-1 and SHK series of Austrians. So he converted it to VTAL, made the first flight in 1950 at Gillespie Field. Initially was flown with no fairings on the tail. It's best seen in the number 3 picture in the middle right. And then later he got it all faired in real nicely. You can see the picture of the tail with my dad holding the tail up. And he flew it in the 1950, 52, and 54 Torrey Pines Championships with the V-tail. Picture on the lower right was 52. He's got the tail all faired in and everything cleaned up, and the fuselage had been recovered and the ailerons recovered, and the rest was the old orange and red paint, and the whole glider needed a paint job, but it didn't get it at that time. But that was the first color picture I ever found of Robin, the oldest one. And the title says the Robin goes into storage 54 through 64. So on February 23rd, 1954, flying in Torrey Pines Championships, the Robin was badly damaged in cross-country outlanding. He was trying to fly from Torrey Pines to Gillespie Field. He got low in the Mission Gorge area, for anyone who knows San Diego. Was shooting and landing into a field that years ago we drove by on Mission Gorge Road. He showed me the field. It looked adequate. But coming across the pond, which is still there for the cement, sand, and gravel plant, right in front of him was a wire that he didn't know about, strung across the canyon. He dove to get under the wire, then he was too low to make it to the field. And his 2 choices were fly straight ahead into the cliff, to the wall, the dirt wall of the pond, or dive it into the lake, and he dove it into the pond, which badly wrecked the glider. And there's a picture on the right from the San Diego paper of my dad sitting next to the wrecked Robin. The lower left is interesting because you can see the glider's been repainted from that earlier picture. We know that it was all red. Never found a red color picture, but that's early 1954 because I know it was after November 53, and I know it was before the competition in February. And that's my mom at the wingtip of the Robin. That's the only picture of my mom with the Robin that I've ever found. So this was right after they got married, but before I was born. Okay. So Dave Boone rebuilds the Robin wing. So the Robin was just in storage in our backyard when I was a little kid. About 1964, about 10 years after it was wrecked. Oh, by the way, I had one more little story here. I can see I got off to a fast start. I'm going to have plenty of time. I was born in November 54. This was in February 54. So I wasn't there yet, except it happens to be almost exactly 9 months after the wreckage, after the crash. What significance of that, we can all speculate. But that's my timing. So the glider was stored in the backyard. About 1964, a real good friend of my dad's, his name was Dave Boone, retired. And he asked Bob if he could rebuild the Robin. Dave actually flew the Robin a lot. His name was the most common name in the logbook after Johnny Robinson and my dad. So Dave expertly rebuilt the broken right wing, assisted by my dad when he wasn't at work, and by me, and I was about 10 years old when we started. We built a wooden floor, dirt floor, kind of lean-to shop in the backyard. That's where the work was going on. And the wing was nearly repaired. Basically, the primary woodwork was all done. The wing had a broken spar. It was broken off about 4 feet from the root, so it was a pretty big repair. And my dad decided, remember earlier I said he never saw an aircraft that didn't need to be modified. He decided he should convert it to a 2-seat glider so my brother Floyd and I could go flying. And that required cutting out. If you look at the fuselage, it's hard to imagine how to do that. Well, I know what it takes. It takes removing almost all the fuselage tubing. Large amount of tubing was cut out of the fuselage, and it was tack welded together into this new 2-seat configuration. And it became really clear, even to me, and I was maybe about 12 by then, that there are some serious engineering design issues with this fuselage. Combining that with Dave got really impatient. He wanted to get the glider done and fly it. So he quit the project, went on about an HP-14 kit, which he built and he flew. So he could have had the Robin flying faster. And then shortly after 68, around 1970, hang gliding came along, and that was a great new fun thing to do. And my dad liked that because he didn't have to talk to the FAA. And so the Robin was never touched again after about 1968. It just stopped the project. But it was the first full-scale aircraft I ever worked on. It went into storage for 50 years. In fact, Tom Riley, who's listening in, saw the fuselage about 30 years ago in my garage. And Andy Keskis has seen it for his whole life. So anyway, from 1968 to 2018, there was no work completed, but it was moved 5 times to different storage locations. It was always a future project, but other aircraft kept taking up time, like LK-10s and TG-2s, ASW-20s, Stinson 108s, Cessna 180s, et cetera. You get enough airplanes, you can never build another one because all you do is annuals. In 2018, I retired from full-time work and it was now Robin time. I finally get working on it. Over the years before 2018, I had gathered all the parts in one spot. I had found every photo I could possibly find. We got the FAA registration reestablished, built a workshop at home, and I reverse engineered the fuselage from all the parts and photographs. So the parts, the pictures at the bottom of this page are the parts I had to start with. The left are just some miscellaneous fuselage parts. You can see the control stick, torque tube, and stick socket, some other various tubing. The good feature of my dad is when he sawed all the pieces out of the fuselage to change it, he never throws anything away. So we had all the bits and pieces. The center picture, the main wing attach, that's kind of the main bulkhead in the fuselage where the main wing spar attached. And then the right hand is the lower nose. It's kind of at an angle, but the very right hand corner, the point at the furthest right is where the tow hook attaches. Then that's the structure down to the skid and supporting the seat. Basically, those are the parts I was able to use. The rest of the fuselage is all brand new. We'll take a little side trail here to meeting John Robinson. About 1982, which of course is 40 years ago, I met John Robinson and discussed the Robin with him, and he wondered why anyone would fly such a mold glider. He thought it was stupid. He said, you should get a Nimbus 3 or something like that. Then I had the opportunity to fly with him in 1988 in my LK-10. I was not a real experienced pilot. We were climbing in a thermal at Hemet. I was real proud of myself. John Robinson's in the back seat. He's a little tiny guy, and he refused cushions, so he could barely see over the canopy rail. After about 3 or 4 turns in the thermal, he said, let me have it. And he took the controls, and the glider immediately went into auto smooth. I couldn't tell that the stick was ever moving, and our climb rate doubled. And after all that, then he said, okay, you take it. And then he only said, you need to learn to fly smoother. And he never said another word. In 1992, he attended the Torrey Pines National Landmark of Soaring ceremony and later visited us at our Gillespie Field hangar, along with his good friend Woody Brown, who came to Torrey Pines from Hawaii. And there's Johnny and Woody. Johnny with the Robin rudder, with the orange and red fabric my dad put on it in 48. Never changed, never recovered because he took it off and made it a V-tail, so he didn't need to recover the rudder. Fortunately, he kept it. And Woody with the rudder for the Thunderbird, his baby Bolus, which at the time I also owned. Woody set the U.S. national distance to a goal record with that baby Bolus of 258 miles. And these two were the top competition pilots on the West Coast in the late 1930s. So that was quite something. That's 1992. Okay, now we're building this new fuselage. And like I said, most of it is new, but there are old tubes in there, about 70%. I counted all the tubes and the feet of tubing, about 70% is new and 30% is original. The basic frame, I believe is quite accurate to the original, but a lot of little details had to be invented. Upper right, it's jigged upside down, being built up. Pictures of welding. It was all welded with a 1940s gas rig, old school style. You know, the original tubing was all 1020, how thick was it? 028. And you just heat it up, it goes poof. And then you're trying to weld it to 035, 4130, and that takes more heat. So I got pretty good at how to do that, but not at first. It's pretty accurate, as I said. The wings had to be custom fitted because the left wing is different from the right wing in the rebuild. And the other feature is Johnny never measured anything very well when he built it. I think his smallest increment of measurement was an inch. The centerline tubes are not on center. They're not, the right and left sides are different by up to 1.5 inches where the joints are in the tubing. It's structurally completely sound. It's just nothing lines up. So you had to attach the wings custom to get the wings and the tail all flying aerodynamically. And somewhere in between was a fuselage, but it wasn't lined up exactly. But the air doesn't care about that so much. Coming together, March 2020, the wings, that's the upper right picture, wings were bolted to the fuselage for the first time in 66 years. But a lot of work remained. Fuselage is just a basic frame, a lot of welding still to go. By August 2020, the lower right-hand lower picture, the fuselage is back from sandblast and paint. And finally, you can start bolting things on permanent. You can see there's a lot of tubing in that thing. It's a lot more than a typical glider of that era. By February 21, the picture on the left, it was ready for cover. And that plywood, rectangular plywood on the side of the nose, that's the Venturi door. And then in the middle, the fin and the stab. I had the rudder, I had the elevators, but I did not have the fin, the vertical fin, don't know where it went. And it had stub fixed stabilizers that I only had pictures of. So those had to be fabricated and attached. Configuration and paint color decisions. Right at the beginning, I was confident I wanted to rebuild the Robin as it was in 1939 when John Robinson competed with it. The V-tail was really unique, but it also had issues. Pete Gerard, who was a famous test pilot in the 60s and also a glider pilot flew with my dad, was the only other person to ever fly the Robin with a V-tail. He was a very experienced test pilot. He took me aside one day and told me, Doug, if you guys ever rebuild the Robin, don't ever fly the V-tail. He was convinced it could not recover from the spin. If I look at the amount of vertical tail volume it has with those elevators at such a shallow angle, it doesn't have very much. And so I'm pretty sure he's right. And the famous flying the glider did, the V-tail was very unique, but the famous flying was with the original tail. We had no color photographs to establish what color the fuselage was. You can go back earlier in the briefing, there were pictures of the glider where it was clear the wings were transparent, but the fuselage was painted some dark color. Red, blue, brown. We couldn't figure it out. We did a lot of work, Gary Fogel and I and the National Soaring Museum, looking through all archives, could never figure it out. So the wings and horizontal were translucent on the JR5. We do know the fuselage was translucent on the JR4, which is the same fuselage. So I decided to create a fantasy configuration, make it all translucent and varnish all the wood, which was what I thought looked the best. And it could have easily been a configuration. There were 8 paint schemes from 1938 to 1954. So I just created a 9th one made up of the first 8. So finishing details. All the internal wood was epoxy varnished. All the steel tube structure was powder coated. All the loose steel parts were epoxy painted. So all modern finishing materials. All the hardware is brand new, except the bolts that bolt the wing struts to the wing spar, because I would have had to cut big holes in the wing to get at those, and they seemed very sound. Aileron splitter control cables are original wrapped and soldered. It's covered with 1.87 ounce polyfiber cloth and polyester cloth with polytack cement, kind of conventional method for a glider or a low-speed aircraft. The unconventional thing is all the fabric and external bare wood was coated with 3 brush coats of McCluskey Manaforce bar varnish. So the entire finish is old-fashioned spar varnish. That gives it that antique brown look with and very translucent. So there's my wife May in the upper right, varnishing away. She got very good at sanding and varnishing. Did all the sanding on the elevators and the rudders, and all the varnishing of those, the internal varnishing, all the varnishing seats and floorboards. That's the seat she's holding in her hands. And then the lower right, the rudder, first part that was finished, I'll say up through ready to fly with the N number. The N number is the original N number, has been continuously registered since 1938. And the logo up above it, the white and black circle, is the logo of the Associated Glider Clubs in Southern California, which Johnny was a big member of and chief instructor. And that logo was on the rudder at that location. We do have photographic proof of it. Rollout, first covered assembly. So May 20th, 21 was first time the glider was all together with it all covered. So there we see it's really getting close. Quite a bit of work was remaining, details, but the covering was finished. So we have a couple beauty pictures in the backyard. The building behind the glider with the 3 windows, that's the workshop. Okay, flight test. June 15th, we left San Diego for Tehachapi with the Robin in tow behind us. And shortly after leaving home, the trailer had an issue. It had a big issue. It went across all 5 lanes of Freeway 15 without being attached to a car. It was a miracle that no cars hit it. We were pretty shooken up, but we got it back home. And Jeff Bard and Ron Martin, both close friends from Tehachapi, came to our rescue, called us up on the phone and said, you need to get that thing up here. They knew we were pushing to get it to the big event in New York. And they showed up the next day with Jeff's big trailer, and Robin was to Tehachapi that night, the next night. Rigging and test planning took place on the 17th. Friday morning, we did 2 car tows down the runway and 3 aero tows. And happily, the glider actually handles better than I expected. Handles pretty darn nice for an old glider, and it's not hard to fly. It's a little quirky. The rudder is overbalanced. The main quirkiness is it's a little sensitive in pitch because it has a full flying elevators, but that was expected. The rudder has too big of aerodynamic balance, so it will go anywhere it wants at any speed. So you have to keep your feet on the pedals, or the rudder will just go over sideways and you'll be flying sideways. It doesn't hurt anything, but if you take your feet off the pedals, you're flying sideways. There's no force on the pedals to keep them straight. What else about it? Yeah, that's it. June 19th, we did 3 more aero tows and climbed 11,500 for a 1 hour, 20-minute flight. That's the longest flight it's had to date. That flight I posted on OLC. I forget how many points I got, somewhere around 100. And as far as I can determine, that was the oldest glider to post an OLC flight last year in the United States. We've finished flying the FA flight test hours, required to fly 5 hours at Tehachapi before going anywhere else, and we're ready for general flying. So here we are in flight test, Mountain Valley Airport. Dan Armstrong drove the tow car, he's very experienced at that. Ron Martin flew the tow plane, also drove the glider to Tehachapi with Jeff, with his truck. And Jeff and Rob Morgan were the ground crew. And this is all a big push to get this done, get the hours flowing off, and get ready to head to Elmira, New York for the International Vintage Sailplane. By the way, I forgot to mention, I mentioned earlier, the glider is very tail heavy. And if you just look at that picture on the lower left and look at that tail is full of steel and a lot of tubing in the long fuselage, and the nose isn't that long. So you can just visualize that it's probably tail heavy. I had to put 40 pounds of lead in the nose. So 10% of the empty weight is lead. And that was a project to get that all bolted in, but it's very secure. We formed the lead. Probably doesn't meet California OSHA laws when we formed it, melted it, but it works. And it flies very nice. I've got the CG right about in the middle of the envelope with me flying it. It'll probably stay there. In theory, I could take some of the lead out, but I don't see any real reason to do that. Okay, cockpit view. I thought this might be fun. The left-hand side is that picture in 1939 from Andy with the instruments we talked about earlier. The picture in the middle is what it looks like today with the instruments I found to recreate the original cockpit. You can see the 4-inch airspeed, the 3 1/8 turn and bank, the compass down below the turn and bank, the Robinson pellet vario, and the pocket barometer altimeter further closer to the pilot on the right-hand side. And then the venturi retracted inside the fuselage on the right side down by your knees. And then the right-hand picture is an in-flight picture. And the big difference, it looks distorted because the camera is kind of too close. You know, I mean, my head's in the way to get the camera far enough back. But the one thing I've got added on here, everybody, all the glider pilots to see the Nano 3. That gives me a data logger and altitude and audio vario and all kinds of neat modern stuff. And it Velcros on, so I take it off so nobody sees it when it's on the ground. And you can see, what else can you see? By the way, the nose is transparent. You can see my feet there. That was done because all of the launching before World War II was by car tow or winch launch. Aero towing wasn't generally allowed. And that was so you could look between your feet and watch the tow car for ground launch. That was the reason for the transparent nose. And it wasn't the only glider that had it, but it's the only one I know of today with that feature. Okay, IVSM, July 10th to 17th. This is a big event in the vintage world. It happens generally every 4 years in New York. It's meant to be an international event, invite all of our friends from Europe. Unfortunately, because of COVID restrictions, nobody could come. Even glider pilots who normally bring gliders from Canada could not come, but it was held anyway because we were tired of waiting. So it's every 4 years. The upper right picture is when we're leaving Tehachapi to drive to New York. So it's quite a drive. And again, that big white trailer is Jeff's trailer. The 4 people there are Aiden on the left, Jeff Bard, myself, and Ron Martin. It's Ron's truck, Jeff's trailer. Inside the trailer is Ron's Schweitzer 2-8, which is a fantastic 2-place Schweitzer zero-time glider when he first flew it. He found there were pieces of a glider that had never been finished at the factory, and he restored it. It is a brand new 1942 glider. So that was in the trailer and the Robin, both in that trailer. Aiden is Ron's grandson. So basically we had 3 old guys, average age about 70, and 1 70-year-old kid who could drive after it got dark and we were tired. But that worked great. That was a great way to go. And you can see the glider on the flight line there. And on the grass, they have this green stuff in Elmira, New York. We don't have that in California, but it's everywhere. And it was sopping wet there all week. We had to quick try to get flights in between the rain showers. And anyone who doesn't know the Robins base at Mountain Valley Airport in Tehachapi, if you'd ever like to see it, I don't see it going anywhere soon, whenever the next event is. So there's the story. And I hope that was interesting and we have some time for a few questions. I'll open up the chat to see what people said. Christopher, do you want me to just go through the questions?
Yeah, there were too many questions. I think I was kind of one of the few who asked questions, and I got some of them answered by the folks in the gallery.
I see. Oh yeah, somebody answered them for me.
Yeah, somebody answered for you. I wasn't expecting that, but they knew the answer, so that's fine. Unless if you'd like to add a little more information to those answers. I just found I find the instruments just so interesting because they're cool looking because they're just so classic, old fashioned looking, but they're amazing. I mean, coming up with, I guess I'm still kind of curious about the pellet vario, like how he designed and came up with that. I just curious design idea.
The idea is pretty simple. He didn't invent the idea. Pellet varios were invented in Europe.
I see.
But the problem Johnny had is Johnny was a working man, a welder. He didn't have a lot of money. So the instruments to buy from Germany were very expensive. He couldn't afford them. So he made his own variometer. And it proved to be very good. And he later marketed them. And you can go in Soaring magazines from 1940 and 41, and you'll see ads for Robinson pellet variometers. It works similar. It has a capacity just like a normal mechanical vario. It has two tapered tubes, and it's called a pellet vario because in each tube is a pellet. It has to be exactly the right size. It can be a seed, it can be whatever material it is. It needs to be something lightweight.
Mhm.
The tubes are tapered so that when air is flowing through them, the stronger the air is flowing through them, the higher the pellet will
Going
go
up, right,
until the air leaks by the pellet.
right.
Okay, if it's so if you have strong lift, the pellet will go higher. You have one pellet for up air, and the down pellet will then plug the hole at the bottom of the tube when you're going up. Or if you're going down, the
Right.
down pellet will climb. The up pellet was always painted green, and the down pellet was painted red. That's where you get the terminology green air. Green air is good.
Oh, I haven't heard that before.
On up.
Cool. Huh.
Somebody asked about welding. I think Cindy answered it. I knew how to weld when I started, but not very good. My original plan was to tack weld it all together and have a expert welder who I knew do the welding, but he said, that's too much work. There's too many tubes, and that you better learn how to weld. So I did. You better learn how to weld good enough to fly instead of not just good enough to tack. By the
Yeah.
time I got the project done, I'm happy with my welds. Some of the early ones I had to do 3 times.
Hmm.
I wasn't so good, but I was just slow. I eventually got them all done.
Well, I could tell you my heart skipped a beat just when you told us how the trailer came off and went getting across the freeway.
Oh, that was
Oh my God. Thank God
That
that
was
survived
terrible.
that. Yeah. So,
yeah, but we survived it. The trailer was pretty bent up. I had done a lot of work to secure the glider in the trailer, and the supports held. So the
Mhm.
glider was not damaged except for a scratch. A scratch and a fabric tear.
well, I'm just curious if, because I, talking to you and Gary Fogel about, historic flying and soaring sites in San Diego. Is there a chance it could fly down there somehow? What would it take to have that happen?
Do you mean at Torrey Pines?
Torrey Pines, or yeah, it's anywhere in San Diego, but specifically Torrey Pines would be amazing, but yeah, Torrey Pines.
Yeah, I would say Gary will say there's a chance because he's always gung ho. Hey, we can make it happen. I think the chances of ever flying a non-motor glider at Torrey Pines are near zero.
Mhm.
There's a variety of reasons. I could take us, that'd be a whole hour discussion. When you're there, you will understand better.
Right.
Other sites, what other famous sites?
Arvin? That's a
Well,
hard one. That's a tough one too.
I've landed at Arvin. We had the Arvin commemorative ceremony
Right.
20 years ago. We
Right.
got permission to land there.
Yeah,
Getting in and flying it there now would be very difficult.
yeah, well,
Working cattle ranch still, and they don't see any reason to do that.
sure. Yeah.
Where else?
How about Gillespie, since it spent so much time flying there before?
Well, you could fly it at Gillespie if you wanted to. Just to do it, just have to carry a handheld radio and talk to the tower. In years past, the tower was very cooperative flying gliders there, and I did quite a bit of flying with my LK years ago at Gillespie giving rides. The problem was that the county of San Diego thought that was an inappropriate use of the airport, decided to forbid it. And then they got in trouble from the tower and said, you can't forbid it. People have to be allowed to land here if they need a place to land. And they compromised to okay, you can land at Gillespie or you can take off from Gillespie on a ferry flight, but you can't take off and land on the same flight. And about that time, the guy who was towing me with a 450 Stearman moved to Washington, and so I lost the energy to battle. But I don't. There's no reason we couldn't fly it at Gillespie again, except operating in that heavy air traffic environment would make actually soaring kind of challenging. I mean, you'd have to, your floor for safe soaring would be 2,500 feet or 3,000 feet, some ways from the airport, outside the airport traffic area.
Mm.
And that'd be hard. You can fly it there once at an air show just to say you did it.
So,
Borrego Springs.
I think it'd be fun to think of a date that was perhaps particularly pertinent to the Robin
Yeah.
and make it a historic event for San Diego County. And then, you know,
That would work.
you couch it in the right wrapping paper, and then all the politicians want to jump on board with you. So
Sure. If it was a Gillespie Field Air Show Days or Museum Open House Day. One airport that it did fly at that would be kind of fun is Borrego Springs.
Oh,
The Robin was at Borrego Springs on the grand opening ceremony.
oh, wow.
And I have a picture of it on the runway there.
Oh.
It was there, a TG2 was there, and various airplanes were there. A brand new Bonanza was there in the pictures.
What was that date?
I don't remember the date. It was around 1949.
Oh,
So it was this configuration. It was before the VTail.
I would think that'd be certainly a good place for soaring, right?
Oh, it'd be a
Plenty-
great place.
Plenty
They
of
did-
thermals.
Yeah, the Robin did a lot of flying off of Clark Dry Lake out in Borrego,
Oh,
cartoing off Clark Dry Lake.
yeah. There you go. So there's a place.
There's
there.
one, that's the one place I can think of in San Diego. I don't know if you could get permission to aerotow off of Clark Dry Lake or cartow. That would be fun.
Oh,
but
yeah,
Borrego-
that'd be, yeah.
Borrego Springs Airport is an airport where the Robin flew that's available to fly off.
Is that a municipal airport now or?
It's still an airport, still a public airport.
Municipal. Public, yeah,
Yeah, uncontrolled.
right. That'd be kind of fun if we could get couple other vintage ships out there and do a kind of a special flight out there. That'd be fun.
Right. It flew at Hemet. It flew at El Mirage. Flew at Tehachapi. It flew at Arvin. Landed at 29 Palms once.
No, that's a pretty widespread for SoCal.
Right.
Most of the places that gliders have typically been flying for quite some time.
Yeah. I don't think it was ever flown at Elsinore.
Yeah, there's one for the list.
Right. Any other questions from anyone?
Seem to be any other questions?
Oh, there's somebody wrote something recently.
Yeah. Oh, the 60mm movie. I lived in Corcoran, California. Alex, if you want to jump in and talk about that or say something more about that. Oh, yeah.
Alexander, I think I've seen that movie. I know I've seen movies at Arvin, old newsreel types. There's also a movie online you can find on YouTube of the Robin winch launching at Torrey Pines in the 1941 configuration where it was painted all white.
Yeah, those are fun. I've just recently been finding a lot of the fun old videos that there were movies, but now posted on YouTube in black and white of the Ballast and all his amazing flights and fun stuff that he was doing with Lindbergh and all that. It's
Right.
fun to watch. You can spend many hours on YouTube watching all those classic old sailplanes up there. Well, Doug, this has been great. I really appreciate your time and effort into this, and it's an amazing ship. It's a beautiful ship. It's just you've done an incredible job of getting this beautiful historic sailplane back in the air, and it's definitely, if you get a chance, get up there to Tehachapi and see this. I imagine you're going to be flying it up at the Vintage Soaring meetup in the end of May, Memorial Day weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the next planned fly day.
Right.
Weather dependent.
Sure. Yeah. Fingers crossed that we have good weather, and we'll see this and other beautiful vintage ships flying up at Tehachapi.
The last time it flew was in September at Tehachapi, and Jeff had his baby Bolus up, and we had both gliders in the air at the same time.
Oh boy, yeah, that's great. Well, hopefully we'll see the same.
We're trying to get together fly formation, but it proved to be really hard.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I guess, is it partly because of different flight characteristics or just trying to get them in close enough where a camera can get them both, I guess is tricky, yeah. Like,
Alexander wrote some more is, I was just reading the chat.
oh, yeah. Oh, so more videos that are,
Yeah, I'm very familiar with all of June's narrations. I've got all those movies and
oh,
videos.
oh, great, yeah.
A lot of them got posted on YouTube.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, yes, I mean, it's nice to have that tool available to us these days and get all
Right.
that vintage stuff and up on YouTube for historic documentation, so.
Yeah, it was generally, those movies that she narrated were generally in the 50s in Texas, and some in Florida and some in Elmira, some at Torrey Pines, but it was generally after the era of the Robin.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks again, Doug. Just really appreciate all this effort, and it's got your ending picture is just beautiful. I could stare at that photo for quite a while. It's just gorgeous plane. So good luck with continued soaring with it, and I'll look forward to seeing you up at Tehachapi. And thanks everybody for joining us and coming on tonight. And like I said, if you want to rewatch this, I'll get it up in a few days on YouTube. And join us in 2 weeks if you're interested in hearing a young pilot talk about his amazing convergence flying up in the Sierra. So join us in 2 weeks for Zach Yamaguchi's talk then. Other than that, I will say good night, stay safe flying, and be well. Thanks again for joining us at the AVSC Porch Chat. Thanks, Doug.
Okay. Good
Thanks,
night, all.
everybody. Take care.